Hey everyone, we're at the office again. I got to start getting up earlier in the morning, but for now you can just keep looking at my gloriously red beard in the light of my office. Anyway, we're going to be playing match day 7 today. First, let's look at how we did match day 6. Oh, whoops, that appears to be Richard Mason's Facebook page for no particular reason. Anyway, leave you to your own conclusions about why I might have shown him today. But anyway, go ahead and scroll down to LearnedLeague. Match day 7. First, we can check on our results. We played Kristen Sauceville yesterday. It was a good day for us to play her. She was only able to come up with 2, and so our 9-6 carried us through. Chris Fleetus, on the other hand, did much better yesterday and kind of got us. One thing I would note yesterday, I had no imagination that Nelson's column or Nelson's statue, which I assumed was like accepted, would have played the second hardest. The Kelvin thing kind of makes sense. I think a lot of people probably don't know that 273 is the gap there. So anyway, all right. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. Match day 7. The July 1983 concert, attended by hundreds of thousands in New York Central Park, is legendary today for the intense thunderstorm that cut it short. The performer returned the following evening, but proceeds from a televised special were insufficient to sponsor a promised new playground in the park, so the artist ultimately paid for it with her own funds. Who is this pop superstar? Okay, so is this, I don't know if we're 7 for 7, but we're certainly close to it on New York questions this season. Usually, obviously, they have a little more broad appeal. I assume, though, if you know Central Park really well, I'm going to cough, sorry. Sorry, still getting over this cold. Anyway, I assume if you know Central Park really well, you might actually know this playground because probably named after her. I will note that this is a pop superstar in 1983 who could have packed Central Park, which means it's not any of our 80s people, including Madonna, I would think. It's not going to be like your Gibson or anyone like that, who I'm not even sure were popular by then. Most likely, it's somebody who is popular already and is being described as a superstar. I have maybe one guess for that, but we're going to come back to that after I give it a little more time to think. Okay. 2. The Galleria dell'Accademia Art Museum in Florence, Italy, includes in its collection most famously a statue of whom? Commissioned originally for the Florence Cathedral's roof line in 1504, it was instead, in part to its 6'10" weight, unveiled at ground level outside the city's Palazzo della Signoria, where it remained until 1873. Well, what's a heavy sculpture in Florence? The answer is David. Statue of whom? So yeah, by Michelangelo's David. I haven't a single better thing to say. I do know that it was moved indoors, and that does make sense. So, okay. The Copacabana is the hottest spot north of Havana in the 1978 hit song by Barry Manilow, but the actual 2.2-mile-long Copacabana beach is located in what other city? All right. It's in Rio de Janeiro. Copacabana Beach, Rio de Janeiro. If you watched the World Cup in 2014, you saw lots and lots of ESPN footage from Copacabana Beach in Rio. I don't have much else to say there. That's where Copacabana is. It's a curved beach. I think you can sort of see from one end to the other across the bay, which is pretty sweet. Anyway, although he is famous today as a discoverer of oxygen, what English chemist and Unitarian minister was possibly most famous during his time for creating directions for impregnating water with fixed air, setting off a European craze for soda water? So yeah, a discoverer of oxygen. There were many people who came to like similar conclusions at the same time. Usually the oxygen discoverer is Joseph Priestley. Suppose it would make it feels appropriate that he was a minister. I didn't know that he created soda water. Really what I'm going with there is British oxygen discoverer, English oxygen discoverer. Honestly, this is probably a good time for me to unveil what I think is a new feature, which is our keeper of the day. I have a thing that I annoy my friends with when they don't know a question. I'll say something like, oh, you should hold on to that one, or, oh, that's a keeper. And honestly, I think it may help them sometimes if we're just playing around at trivia. I do this. It's very arrogant and it's very obnoxious, and I'm sorry that I do it. But right now, I'm making videos for all kinds of different people, and it seems valid for me to note when I see something that I think people who want to get better at trivia should like sock away. And in this case, it's that Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen. I don't know it, like if you do not know that, or if you do not immediately associate those two things, it's worth pinning together and keeping. That's basically what our keeper of the day is. So yeah, today, keeper of the day, Joseph Priestley, discoverer of oxygen. Question 5. Bakery owned by Thomas Fariner on Pudding Lane near London Bridge in the city of London is widely believed to have originated what? I love originated what because I'm pretty sure the answer is the Great Fire of London. It is, I think, extremely famous that, well, like to British people, that Pudding Lane is where the fire started. I could be wrong. This feels very familiar to me, like something I heard on QI. So yeah, I just love originated what. People are going to say things like, oh, you know, hot cross buns, or oh, sandwich cookies, or, you know, something funny like Boston cream pie, right? But I believe the answer is the Great Fire. Okay. An Academy Award-winning 1964 film was an adaptation of a 1956 Lerner and Loewe stage musical, which was itself based on a 1938 film adaptation of a 1913 play. Okay, what was the name of any of these 4 productions? Okay, well, immediately I am struck by the 1913 sounds about right for Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw, which would mean that the film was My Fair Lady. 1964 sounds right for that. 1956 Broadway sounds right for that. I don't really know anything about 1938 film Pygmalion. It's probably really important and has famous people in it, and I just am really unaware because it's a film from the 30s, but that is where I am at and what I'm going to go with. So I am going to say My Fair Lady. Okay. We're going to go back up to the first question. Okay. The Pop Superstar 1983 concert, New York Central Park. Okay. There are 2 people I can think of who would be like very obvious for this. One is Barbra Streisand, and the other is Diana Ross. Barbra Streisand, I wouldn't describe exactly as a pop superstar. She's more of a diva, or not that Diana Ross is not a diva, certainly, but Barbra Streisand is not a pop superstar in that she didn't make lots of pop records. She made lots of records that sold well, but it's not quite the same thing. So I think I'm going to go with Diana Ross. There are very few people in this time period who would be a pop superstar. There's like Donna Summer, but by 83 she would have been kind of out of fashion. And there's not a lot of other people, to be honest, like female pop superstars that could pack Central Park in the 80s, you know, which means they have to have 15 years, behind them or something like that, unless they're sort of craze at the time. But there wasn't anybody who was a craze at the time. It's not Madonna. She wasn't, she was just kind of an MTV thing at that point, I think. So I'm going to go with Diana Ross. All right. Smith C3 is our normal opponent. Smith C3, very good at lifestyle, which is interesting because lifestyle is kind of the catch-all. I I love that they have 1,000 in lifestyle. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever seen because it's very rare. Okay, their second worst category is science, and I think Priestley is hard enough that I can put a 2 there. I don't think it's quite hard enough that I can put a 3. Their theater is 61%. Their film is 81%. Their world history is 65%. Originated what is so tricky. So tricky. But, okay, let's find the 0. I feel reasonable putting the 0 on Rio de Janeiro. I feel even better putting it on Michelangelo's David. You know what, though? I think with an 85% pop music score, though, that doesn't necessarily lead you to Diana Ross, but especially because I'm not sure of that one. This is tough. This is a tough day to defend against this person. So, all right. Great Fire of London gets a 2. relatively poor theater score. 61%. It's not bad. It's quite respectable. Can I put the 3 on My Fair Lady and not Priestley? I think I can't. I'm going to switch them. That gives us the 1s and 0s up top, which are kind of like, I guess I'll put a 1 on Diana Ross. Like, the question is, how long will this person sit and think about it? But if you do, and you know pop music pretty well, which the 85% would indicate, then you're going to figure it out, right? If they weren't from Dallas and had gone to Penn State and were instead from New York, I'd feel better about it. All right. I just think Michelangelo's David's the only thing you can say there, and a 61% art wouldn't be like a red flag to throw me off of that. And Rio is 1. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Lots of thinky questions today, or at least a couple. All right. To defend my friend, I have to defend Solomon Stein. Okay, now listen. Solomon Stein, my best friend in the entire world. He was best man at my wedding, and yet my defense against him is surprisingly poor because when we talk about stuff, we don't talk about trivia because we have so much else to talk about. It's weird. We talk about games. We talk about, all our different fun hobbies. We've gotten each other into stuff. He got me into cereal, the podcast, not the food. And, I got him into, well, we're going to WrestleMania together this year. I'll put it that way. And I would never have imagined in 2014 that such a thing would happen. So we're pretty close. And, and going to Mania was his idea. That's the other thing. So yeah, we enjoy each other. I feel like he's going to come up with Pygmalion. I feel like that's the sort of thing that he would tend to know from all of those clues. He tends to do well on the think piece questions. I am going to give a 2 to Great Fire of London because I think he may not know this story. If that's the answer, I feel really good about it. He gets a 1 for Priestley. I think he will know that cold. I think a 0 for Rio is safe for Copacabana Beach too. Like, his geography is not like his strongest suit, but I don't think that's really a geography question. All right, I think we're going to give Diana Ross the 3 and David the 2. I don't think that he's going to associate like Pop Superstar with Diana Ross. I don't think he goes and walks Central Park very often. He lives in Brooklyn. David the 2, though, that can't be right. All right, I'm going to give David a 1, and we're going to find a different 2. Maybe I'll even you know what? I'm going to give David the 0. Put a 1 on Rio just in case. That. And then put the 2 on My Fair Lady. I guess that's what we're going to do. Okay. Let's go ahead and you know what? I'm going to play bad defense against Solomon again. Ross, David, Rio de Janeiro, Priestley, The Great Fire of London, yay, and My Fair Lady or Pygmalion. Sweet. All right, so we did it. That was good times. Anyway, all right. Well, everybody have a good day today, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.